back in Malaysia. This is my third trip here. How many of you were at SOFTEC 2017? Okay, so I won't be repeating myself for too many people. So I wanted to come today to talk about how worldwide trends are impacting the future of software testing. Malaysia is a young country. Many of you are much younger than me. And there's a great future ahead. I mentioned this in 2017, and your future as software testers is even better than it was in 2017. A little bit about my company. I work mostly in the United States. I've been involved in international standards and writing software engineering standards since 1994. So I've spoken in 30 countries. Lately, I spoke 2 weeks ago in Ottawa for the International Cost Estimation and Analysis Forum, the Canadian version. I've spoken all around the world. I've been involved in requirements engineering, cost estimation, all the way through the life cycle. But I am not a tester, so don't ask me technical testing questions. Personally, I live in Florida. This is one of my pictures that I've taken. It is a lot like Malaysia. I'm a Can-American engineer, which means I'm born in Canada, but I am also an American. I've been 25 years in Florida. I have 2 children that are probably the age of some of you, 2 granddaughters, and my favorites are things like sunset, sailing, travel, and lately something that's brand new called the hard badger, which I'll talk about. So wouldn't it be fun to kind of have a crystal ball that you could predict the future and be in the right place? Well, let's look at a bit of crystal balls and roller coasters and software. Let's look at some definitions of project success and failure. The past to the present, there's been a focus on project success and failure. Projects. So if I look at yesterday, from 1998 to 2005, that's definitely yesterday. And we look at the project failures. You look down this list, starting in 1998, problems with order entry systems contributing to revenue losses of $50 million US. You look all the way up to 2005, and it hasn't stopped. The product failures, if you look at the ones that are not underlined in red here, these first ones, you look all the way across. These are all considered by industry, by IT and non-IT, as failures. And there's nothing that says 200,000. They're all in the millions. Millions of US dollars that were failures that were spent money. Well, if we look at product failures instead of project failures, we have financial losses typically due to poor, and I put in quotes, quality products that may or may not be associated with testing. So if you look at some of these, 2005, the Hudson Bay Company, one of the major retailers that has now gone bankrupt in Canada, problems with the inventory system contributes to $33.3 million loss. UK inland revenue in England, software errors contribute to $3.45 billion tax credit overpayments. These are major situations, but they may or may not have been due to improper testing. It could be due to improper requirements or a number of different things. You may or may not have heard of the Standish Group Chaos Report. Every year, or every second year, the Standish Group, which is a major research institution in the United States, looks at success versus failure criteria for projects. So they take a look now in 2015, and there's a latest one in 2018, of agile versus waterfall projects. And they say, look at this, wow, agile is 42% successful versus waterfall being 26%. Challenged, wow, 50% of agile projects are challenged. 8% are outright failures. That sounds pretty dismal, right? And this is published in the newspapers along with the previous information. And everyone looks and says, why would I ever invest in IT? Why would we ever invest in software? If 1 out of 2 projects is going to succeed, it's not a very good investment, is it? Well, let's take a look at something, and I find this fascinating because I think it's all about communication more than anything. If we look at the criteria for what constitutes success, success in a project means on time, on budget, with all the features. Sounds pretty good. Challenged means it was delivered, but either it's late or over budget, or there's features that are missing. Failed or canceled means there's been no delivery at all. Okay, so on time, on budget with all features versus maybe late. Let's look at that. Notice that this does not include quality. We look at these definitions. Does it say quality anywhere? So if I deliver on time and on budget with all the features, but it's poor quality, where are we at? Well, that's not even mentioned. PMI did a study in 2017 that I found was equally fabulous and flawed. If you look up here, project performance metrics that were completed within the original budget. Wow. Completed on time, experienced scope creep, failed projects budget loss, deemed failures. The whys of project failures. Notice how many of these characteristics include quality. Really none. Vague requirements. Okay, maybe there's something to do with quality there. Communication breakdowns. There's nothing about quality here at all. So let's look at the factors contributing to project failure. According to the Standish Group, I believe it's because we do this back of the napkin estimating. What does that mean? We look at software in the pre-requirement stage. We come up with budgets, schedules, and requirements documents that are really ambiguous and incomplete. And they're almost done a lot of times over lunch. Sketches are like Jello or clouds. We've got our functional requirements, what the software or the envisioned cloud is going to do, plus non-functional, all of our quality requirements. And often that's done on a napkin, which somehow over lunch goes from being a napkin or a serviette, gets thrown into the garbage, and then somehow magically turns into the project budget and the schedule. I said approximately 10 years ago that when we start a project off, we should really put up the napkin as the starting point. We should put up the napkin together with the marinara stain in the corner and say, guess what? We're in a project kickoff meeting. Welcome, team. This is great. It's going to be an agile project or a waterfall project, and we're going to build this incredible piece of software. Here's our budget. Here's our schedule. And here's what that's based on. See the napkin? But we don't do that. And so immediately, right at the very beginning, when we sit down with stakeholders, there's a cross in communication. Because we say, here's our budget, and here's our schedule, but we don't show them what it's based on. So somehow when we put up exact numbers, it looks like we've got this crystal ball, and somehow we can predict exactly what's going to come out. The definition of success versus failure versus challenge: over budget compared to an original estimate? Late compared to an original schedule? That's like going to a carnival. And you know, they give you a dart and they say, okay, throw it at the wall, and you pop a balloon, and underneath the balloon, it says $33 million, which is our budget. or it's going to be finished with 32 person months of effort with a maximum team size of this. That's really what we're doing. And cost estimators, when I spoke to them, they said, this isn't our fault. How can we be blamed for project failures when we did nothing more than shoot a dart? We're on the other end of that as testers. Number 3, missing features. That's like having this laundry pile with shells, critical mandatory things that the system must have in it, the shoulds, here's the things we want, the coulds, it would be nice to have them, and then all of the gold plating features that would be easy for developers to put in. When we look at project failure and we say it's against this cloud of features, what if we don't deliver some of the coulds? Does that make the project a failure? What do you think? What if we don't deliver some of the shoulds, the wants? The whole definition of project failure, in my opinion, is completely flawed. So if you happen to get the exact right number, the exact right deadline, and the exact right definition of what's in this laundry pile, hooray, let's clap. That's like winning the lottery. And it's mostly by chance. The 2018 report finally defined what they meant by chaos. And I thought chaos just meant that we didn't know what we're doing in software development. They defined it as being comprehensive human appraisal for originating software. Wow. So when you take a look at what are the chaos factors of success, none of them have anything to do with methodology. Skilled resources, optimization, user involvement, standard architecture, agile process. These are the new things that they've finally come out with and said, these are the predictors of success. Not whether you're really good at throwing a dart and hitting the right balloon. So from the present to the future, the focus I've noticed has shifted in industry and in general population to focus on product success and failure. That's a little bit of a different shift. So we've got this rise of product. NFR stands for non-functional requirements. And we start reading about things like the biggest data breaches of the 21st century. Marriott in 2018, 500 million data breaches. 500 million users worldwide. Wow. Their information's everywhere. Equifax in 2017, 143 million. The Adult Friend Finder. Some of you may say, well, if you're on Adult Friend Finder, you should have had your information revealed. Anyways, but that's a completely different thing. That's a dating website that I'm not going there. Yahoo, 3 billion. 3 billion. I recently had an email that said, do you want to join the class action suit? Actually, you're already part of the class action suit. And all you need to do is fill out this little form because you had a Yahoo ID back in 2013, and by the way, your data was compromised. That's scary. Fortunately, I no longer have my Yahoo ID, but I have to find out what it is so that I can claim damages. What else is going on today? We've got the data security, we've got privacy. In the United States, privacy is key. However, we've also got some issues going on with data privacy as being conflicting. You've heard about the fact that the United States has guns. Do you know about that? That we have guns? But we don't want to have gun control. So we've got all of these mass shootings going on, and do you know what our law enforcement solution is to eradicating or getting less mass shootings? It's not to get rid of the guns. It's not to have gun control. It's to start reporting more data on your neighbors. So if one of your neighbors acts a little bit suspicious, you can start reporting them. So we're going to start having data all over the place that your friends and neighbors have contributed, and how good do you think that data is going to be? If I have a dog, and I walk my dog, and my dog goes on my neighbor's lawn, and my neighbor thinks that is suspicious, I might now be reported to law enforcement as being a suspicious character, and they might misreport who I am and what I do, and all that data is going to come in, and it's going to be an interesting situation. We've got GDPR, which is very prevalent in Europe, where the data access, I can disappear. And if I have said to any company in Europe that lose me, forget me, pretend I am dead, that is basically what I'm saying. Get rid of every piece of information that you have about me. And if you do not, I can sue you in Europe and get damages. So we've got some very interesting things going on that are going to affect and may already have started affecting testing. Security. And then we've got things that we can't even imagine. Who could have imagined that data breaches 15 years ago would be an issue? No. Or any of the things to do with privacy. We've got the cybersecurity and threat situation. This was an advertisement off of a website that said, how exposed is your business to a data breach or a cyber event? A cyber event? Sounds like a party, doesn't it? Certainly not a party. 5% average slump in company share price after 14 days. And as Matthias said, we've got issues. If a piece of software comes out and it causes data or privacy or legislation issues, your company can suffer greatly. 30% of your customers will stop buying from you or working for you. What's the source of the data breach? How extensive is it? It doesn't even matter. So that completely ups the requirements for testing and quality. 45% more breaches reported in 2017 versus 2016, and 75% of breaches are by external attackers. Okay, that doesn't sound like too much until you realize where's the other 25%. So 25% are from internal attackers. What are we doing about that? We've got emerging issues as well. This was a DNA company that tampered with results, former employees say. This company takes your money as a consumer and says, we will do DNA testing based on the DNA that you spit into a little vial, send it in. They will do DNA testing. They will tell you which products you should purchase, whether you should purchase vitamins, whether you should have certain types of foods, all sorts of things. Someone submitted 2 samples separately. And guess what? The results came back completely differently because they were lying. Internal employees, when they could not figure things out, would go to Google. And then they would enter that into your profile. If there were non-matches, they would enter things in. Could have we ever tested for that? Okay, now we're beyond the realm of testing. But when something like this happens, they say, well, why couldn't have the software prevented that? So now we're trying to look at how human behavior and consumer protection should fit in with software. So consumer expectations of honesty somehow we think should be protected. We've also got situations like Alibaba's Jack Ma calls the 996 China's 72-hour work week a huge blessing. Do you know what 996 is? That's where you work 7 days a week for 12 hours a day. 7 times 12, that's not 96. Maybe it's 6 days. Somehow they end up with 72 hours. And my math is not good right now. So So he says this is a huge blessing. People should work harder, harder, harder. Because we get higher productivity, right? The harder we work people, the longer we work them, more productive. No. You don't get more productive the longer you work. What happens with quality? Oh, well, let's just get the products out. So we've got issues to do with quality versus productivity. What about artificial intelligence and robotics? What are our quality and testing expectations? These things are coming on the market quicker and quicker and quicker. And we as testers, and as the testing and quality industry, if you ask anyone in IT who's responsible for quality, invariably it goes back to, oh, that's the responsibility of the test community. Somehow, some way, you all are going to have to figure out how to get really high quality out of poor requirements, out of user demands, out of consumer expectations. But they haven't been defined really well. But you should know, right? We've got another issue, which has got to do with the effects of software on humanity. Within Facebook, which is one of the largest social media outlets in the United States, even though the numbers are starting to come down, we've got millions, and across the world, billions of users. Some of the testing that goes on of websites and of some of the social media cause PTSD. There are things that are put on Facebook that their auditors and their testers watch, and they suffer PTSD because they have to take them down. There's actually some lawsuits pending right now where consultants to Facebook do not get psychological counseling covered, but the employees do. And when you look at some of the things that you can't even imagine, take the most terror-infused movie in Hollywood and multiply that by 100. And that's some of the things that are going on in the world that Facebook needs to test for and make sure aren't happening. Things like torture and things that you don't even want to imagine. So what do we do in terms of handling those things in terms of testing? In terms of not allowing products out there that will allow the vulnerability combined with freedoms? How do you balance that? There's changes happening in IT. Agile changes everything. Oh my gosh, we can't use any of the customary ways in the world because Agile changes everything. We don't know what we're going to build. We have no idea what we're going to build until we're building it. Really? Seriously. And so we can't do a budget. No, because this is going to be like building Lego. How do you estimate that? Well, the Chaos report has no problem saying that it's a failure if you haven't hit that imaginary cost or schedule or number of features. Agile simply is a different way of interfacing with our customers. And the good news is that true Agile embraces early failure. The closing paragraph, and I found this astonishing, in 1995, the very first Chaos report said there's one final aspect to be considered in any degree of project failure. All success is rooted in either luck or failure. I read this and I thought, 1995, they're talking about learning and failure in a positive light? If you begin with luck, you learn nothing but arrogance. However, if you begin with failure and you learn to evaluate it, you also learn to succeed. Failure begets knowledge. Out of knowledge, you gain wisdom, and it's with wisdom that you can become truly successful. Wow, that seems completely contradictory to what everyone talks about with the Chaos report being, we've got tons of IT failures, tons of software failures. Oh my gosh, doom and gloom. This was before Agile. Agile came about, the Agile Manifesto came about in 2000 to 2001. In the Lean Kanban India webinar, Patrick Stewart talks about business agility being beyond practices. On feedback loops, he said, most agile adoptions miss that learning gap. We really need to be doing organizational learning. So the expectations for products that include software, not projects, products. We should be focusing on products. Business value and stakeholder ROI. There has to be a seamless interface with DevOps. We've got these ideas of digital transformation. What does that exactly mean? You ask different people and they all have different definitions. We want everything to be different from an executive point of view, but it better be the same as I'm used to, because I don't want to learn too much. We want to have user experiences that are fun, but they better be safe, they better be protecting me, they better protect my children, but they better also be innovative. How do we handle that as a tester? And we need to be globally attuned. We're talking more about culturally infused test cases or data sets that need to be absolutely culturally sensitive. Well, what does that mean? Maybe that means we need to go back to what Geert Hofstede, one of the seminal researchers in cultural diversity, talks about. But is that really what we're talking about? What is culturally sensitive, globally attuned mean? And it needs to be intuitive. Every piece of software that comes out today, the user manuals are typically very small, where they used to be thousands of pages. Now it's very tiny, and it's all intuitive. Intuitive to who? I know I can't understand Snapchat. I don't know if any of you use Snapchat. It's not intuitive to me at all. And every time I try and send something with Snapchat, I'm afraid it's going to go out to the entire internet, and then someone's going to show a picture of me not in my best profile, or wearing jeans, or doing, who knows? So what does intuition mean? What's the definition of intuitive for every age that's using our software? So what does all this stuff mean for any of you? We've got all of these things going on, all of these demands. The challenges to software testers, and you can look down this and tell me whether or not this is accurate. 99% testing. We can't ever get 100% fail-safe software. What is acceptable quality? What's the definition? Setting the right testing process. When Matthias talked about the different types of tests, which ones could you sacrifice and not do on a piece of software? Lack of communication. To me, this is the Achilles heel. I have to tell you, software testers, software quality is a black box. People don't understand it. People within our industry don't understand where software testers fit or where we should fit. People outside the industry have no idea. They have no clue at all. When you say you need 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 15 weeks to do software testing, they'll look at you because they don't understand. Now, where does the lack of understanding lie? If I don't understand you and what you're saying, is that my fault or your fault? What do you think? It's both sides. And yet in IT, we're so quick to say, it's simple. You can understand me. I'm making it absolutely simple. Look at my artifacts. And I have to say to you, if you talk to a stakeholder and you say, you know what, we'll be delivering the artifacts on Monday, they're going to look it up. And one of the definitions that will come up is Egyptian artifacts. Come in cases that are stamped, and oftentimes you may not have room in your own office. So if I say that I will be delivering to you some requirements artifacts on Monday morning, you're going to think they're from Egypt, and are you going to have to do customs? That's a big deal. If you say we're doing user acceptance testing and regression testing and you name it, that doesn't mean anything. We need to be starting to explain ourselves. Test coverage. We've got a lack of resources. We've got test coverage issues. The definition of what constitutes done. We have a product definition. We have a release definition, whether it's agile or waterfall. We have definitions of done. How does that translate to us? Does that mean you've tested all of the system, 90% of the system, certain components? We've done actual usability testing, field testing. What does the definition of done mean in a testing in a quality environment? The testing of artificial intelligence, the culturally diverse test data sets, definition of quality, those are all issues. Is there anyone in here who would disagree with any of the things on this list as being issues? You may be just too afraid to be the one that sticks up their hand, right? Measurement can assist in these things. And I'm doing a tutorial tomorrow morning that is what is functional size measurement and how can it help you be a better tester. So if you're interested and you're trying to decide which tutorial to go to, I can guarantee we're not going to be talking about function points and everything with acronyms. We're going to make it explainable, understandable. So what does this mean? Well, I noticed two things. One of the things that I do better, or people have told me that I do better than a lot of other people, is connect the dots. Inside my mind, and it's a good thing you can't see it, it's kind of this infrastructure of a web. And things at two opposite ends are connected, which to other people say, well, how did you get there? How did you talk about this subject and now you're talking about this one way over here? In my mind, they are instantaneously connected. So I found two things that I thought were interesting that I see as being connected. One on the left-hand side here is Metric Views, which is a publication that comes out twice a year electronically. And you can go and take a look at this. It's free of charge. If you go to www.ifpug, International Function Point Users Group, .org. It's not .com, it's .org. And in this latest publication, Phil Liu, you've heard of Phil Liu? Somewhere? Where's Phil in here? He's at the very back. So if you don't know Phil, this is one of he published an article in here, which I found really interesting, called Understanding and Defining Quality for Your Organization. There's two huge words in there. Understanding and defining quality for your organization. I could have changed quality to testing. Understanding and defining the needs for testing in your organization. And in it, he says we really need to have some concrete measures, but whose definition of quality do we go with? Should we look at Deming or Crosby or some of the ISO standards? What do you think? And when we look at the definitions, they all say that they satisfy the needs. Satisfy. Wow, what does that mean? Does that mean it's fast or quick? Meets user requirements? Meets the features? That it's on time or on budget? Does that constitute quality? This is a big issue. Understanding and defining within our companies. And then even bigger, what is the expectation of quality in the world? What do we mean by quality? In today's paper, the New Straits Times, I thought it was interesting, there's an article saying, are our students ready for the IR 4.0 workplace? How many of you honestly know what IR 4.0 is? I didn't either. I looked at this and I thought, I wonder if this is some sort of artificial intelligence, some sort of brand new thing that I am just so far behind. No, IR 4.0 is Industrial Revolution 4.0, and it's characterized by advances in technology such as artificial intelligence, augmented virtual reality, big data, analytics, and the Internet of Things. Who knew? This whole article goes through and says, we interviewed 560 parents and students and graduates about IR 4.0 to find out whether they knew what it was and whether we are equipping them to be in this workforce. I didn't know what it meant. I'm thinking we're in the industry and we don't know what it means. But yet, this is a great article. So it had some definitions in here that I thought were interesting. It says, despite the increase of IR 4.0, now number one, call it Industrial Revolution. Don't use acronyms. So despite the increase in IR 4.0 initiatives by the government's doing IR 4.0 initiatives here? You guys are way ahead of everywhere else in the world. And industry. More than half the students and graduates responded that they were unable to articulate. Okay, what the heck does articulate mean? Why don't we say describe, explain, articulate? That's good. That fits in with artifacts. But it did say, beyond technical skills, universities also have a crucial role in ensuring soft skills, with such as critical thinking, problem solving, leadership skills, and lifelong learning. Wow, great concepts. Those are very human-centric. With students and parents believe employers are looking for younger talents as technological employees who will help them in their digital transformation. Graduate students had a really insightful thing to say. They painted a different picture that they see that the organizations are unwilling to adopt a new generation of talent, stating legacy issues and an unwillingness to adopt new processes as key challenges that are faced in the workplace. Whoa, so we've got this whole research idea of artificial intelligence, and we're publishing a lot of things about this because that funds research in universities. And you'll buy a newspaper when it says something about IDAR 4.0 and students don't understand. So, wow, that's the purpose of newspapers, is to create controversy and make you feel like you're just not reading enough and you need to buy more newspapers, which will then fund their castles in the sky. So we've got this research situation. We've got real industry that says, okay, we've got all these legacy applications, and make sure that you prevent all those data breaches, and also make sure that you're testing for innovation. And by the way, you also better be testing for data. Wow. How are we going to compete? What should you focus on as a tester? Is anybody feeling a little bit overwhelmed now about what the future is going to demand from testers? Where are we going to go? Here's an idea. And this is old school. This is low tech. I see that communication is the key. If we as the quality industry are being asked to provide this incredible result, secure, reliable, data encrypted solutions before they go out the door, it's really up to us to communicate what we need to deliver that. It's really easy to blame poor requirements, poor cost estimation, poor schedules, people. We can blame all sorts of things. But we, as the quality community, it's up to us to explain, what does that really mean? What does it mean when we define quality? What do we need to deliver the quality we say we can? What do we need in terms of tools and resources? When you say you need 15 weeks to test, what does that mean? Well, we need to split it up into making sure that your data is secure. So when you give me a data set, I need 3 weeks to make sure that we're testing these things, because that's what leads to data breaches. Really? Okay, now I start to understand. Okay, we need another 4 weeks to make sure that these things are being crossed so that when something happens in this system, it doesn't break over here. Oh wow, now we're starting to understand. It's up to us to say what we need to deliver what they want. What do we want? We want input. You don't want to be at the tail end where everything's been done. And now, by the way, here, tester, go and deliver the high quality. We need input up front. And what are the benefits of doing this? They're going to get that defined quality. How am I on time? Do I still have time? Okay. There's this thing, you may or may not have seen this. I found this on the internet. This is from South Africa. Have you seen the testing manifesto? Have you ever seen this? Where they say testing throughout should be more important than testing at the end. Okay, absolutely. Preventing bugs over finding bugs. So focus on prevention. Testing the understanding between the developers and the stakeholders over checking the functionality. That gets into correctness of the requirements, and some of the things that Matthias was talking about. Building the best system over breaking the system. That's a different focus. And a team responsibility for quality over just the tester responsibility. I mentioned that I'm part of the Heart of Agile. The Heart of Agile is an initiative that Dr. Alistair Coburn, who's one of the originators of the Agile Manifesto, he said, let's simplify. We started out in Agile wanting to simplify this waterfall development where you couldn't have change, we didn't have flexibility. We started out, he said, with some very simple concepts of putting people over processes, working software over documentation. And what happened? In the last 20 years, 17 different individuals all ran out and created their own industries and all the consulting, and now we have over 200 knowledge areas. If you want to teach Scrum as a Scrum practitioner, you have to tick off more than 200 knowledge area boxes to say that you're competent. What happened to the simplification? So he says just focus on collaboration, delivery, reflection, and improve, which is kind of like the old Deming Plan, Do, Check, Act, but it's much more human-centric. So I added two things. As being a Heart of Agile consultant, I looked at it and I said, you know what? I can add two things to this testing manifesto. Having a culture of learning and listening, truly active listening, as opposed to thinking about what I'm going to say next. Pausing, listening, and learning over being right. And transparency and integrity over the pressure to deliver. This is an area that I think as testers and as a quality community, oftentimes companies say, well, we need this delivered fast. We're sorry we were slow in the early stages, but now that we've finally got this product ready, you have 2 days to test it. Does that happen? How many of you would say that the amount of time that you have to do good testing is an issue? How many of you would say that? 1, 2, okay, a few more. How about the adequate resources and the tools? Those are issues. So transparency and integrity, being able to stand up and say, you know what? I wish we could test in 2 days. I really wish, but we can't. Here's what we truly need, and here's why. So it all comes down, in my opinion, to communication. The history of software testing, if we go back, in the 1960s to 1980s, it really was a constraint. I've done the testing and you want me to test you. I've done the coding and now you want to test it? Why? We don't have time for that. Things evolved into the 90s. Okay, maybe you're right about testing. It looks like a nasty bug made its way into the live environment, and now we've got customers, not costumers. I just noticed that typo. It's not costumers, it's not Hollywood people looking to costume or Halloween costumes. Customers are complaining. In the 2000s, we've got testers. You have to work harder, faster, get the best tools, get automated tools, come on, go, 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 go. I added this that I think in the 2010, in our decade, with the introduction of Agile, testing is now integral. We've now got Agile testing, test-driven development. We've made a big progress. And as one of the slides that Matthias had, he showed that we should be integral to the team. What I see as the future for software testers, if we step up to it, if we have the guts to actually step forward as a community and say, how do we prevent data breaches? How do we test AI? And value in your product really has to come from quality. I see the 2020 and beyond, if we apply ourselves, we could become the essential advisor. What do you think? Do you think that's a possibility? Software testing in the future, we have the keys to communication. And I see your role as being as important or more important than any business analyst, than any Scrum Master, because you've got things like fact-based measures. You've got actual numbers. You're not at the front with the cone of uncertainty. You know how many test plans you've executed. You know how many defects, and we can start taking a look at things like defect density, defects per function point. Speak your integrity, stand up for consumer safety. It's up to you to have the tools you need. Never stop learning. Start reading outside the box. Start reading the things that your customers read, that your stakeholders read. What are their expectations for quality? If you only hear it from the developer, it's going to be skewed, and it'll be jaded. Fail often and get back up. Failure, failed tests, that's the bread and butter of our community. Failure should be an opportunity to learn and step up. And believe in the value of your work. If you don't believe in the value of quality, if you don't believe in the value of your role, no one else will. And tell the world that quality matters. It's in your hands. I see software testers as future leaders. So we've got the known knowns. I see these software requirements, product requirements, as being a combination of our known knowns, that's a little bit of iceberg above the surface, the known unknowns, the things that you know are going to come up because they've come up in the last 15 projects. They may not be specified, but you know that they're going to come up. And then we've got the things that are unknown unknowns that, okay, who knew? Why software testers as the leaders of the future? Because you are laser focused. Whereas some of the other parts of the industry are radar focused, they're constantly monitoring. Marketing is monitoring stock values. We've got financial, wanting higher productivity. They are all over the map. And where are we? We have a laser focus on product and customer quality, truthful metrics, and learning. You're constantly learning new ways of testing. So I think that these three combinations equip you to teach the rest of the industry. And I love this quote. One of the major similarities between science and music is that they're both motivated by fundamental human curiosity. If you take a look at an entire Scrum team or an entire software development team and you lay everybody out, who has the highest curiosity? What do you think? Who are the most curious people on that team? I have to say the testers. Because you're the ones that are saying, what if? How about? Have you thought of? Will this work? You're the curious ones. So you are the musicians that really can tell whether a team is in tune or not. And that may put a lot of heavy weight on your shoulders. But I think it's time that software testers and quality rose up and said, you know what, we're not the tail of the dog. We're much more. So I'm not sure what my time is because I don't have a watch and there's nothing clicking in front of me telling me the time. But I'm at the end of my presentation. I think I'm between you and lunch. Or no, I'm between you and the panel. So as the panel starts moving up here, I would have known that my time was up. So I'd like to say thank you. I have 2 tutorials tomorrow. It's wonderful to be back here, and I hope to meet a lot of new faces, and thank you very much for being here.